Ravi once lived a steady and peaceful life in a quiet hill village surrounded by tall trees, soft winds, and rocky paths. He was known as a kind man who worked with patience and never raised his voice at anyone. His simple house stood near a slope where the sun rose each morning. His best companion was Taro, a small brown dog with bright eyes and quick legs. Taro had stayed with Ravi since he was a puppy, and everyone in the village said they were more like a family than a man and a pet. One winter, everything in Ravi's life changed. He slipped on a wet stone while carrying heavy tools. The fall damaged his spine and left him unable to move his legs. When the villagers found him lying on the ground, they rushed him home. The doctor said he would live, but he might never walk again. Those words broke Ravi's heart, but he tried to stay calm. His wife Mira took care of him during the first few weeks. She brought him food, helped him wash, and pushed his wheelchair. At first, she spoke softly and acted patient, but her smile slowly faded as the days passed. She felt her life growing heavier. She missed the freedom she once had. She missed walking wherever she wanted without pushing a chair behind her. She began to sleep less and think more. Her thoughts became sharp and painful. She did not share them with anyone, not even Ravi. Taro stayed close to Ravi every day. The dog slept under his wheelchair and woke up when Ravi woke up. He followed him around the courtyard, watched over him when he rested, and placed his head gently on Ravi's lap whenever he looked sad. Taro understood that something had changed in the house. He noticed Mira's tired eyes. He noticed how she sighed loudly when she thought no one was watching. He noticed how she spoke less and less to Ravi. One cold evening, Mira told Ravi she wanted to take him to the cliff where he used to sit and enjoy the view before his accident. The place had a wide open space and a quiet wind. She said it would help him feel fresh. Ravi agreed because he still trusted her. He believed she wanted him to feel better. He did not notice how her hands shook slightly when she touched the handle of the wheelchair. Taro followed them as they left the house. The dog walked close to Ravi's side, his ears high and alert. The sky was turning orange as the sun moved down, and the hill paths were covered with thin layers of frost. Mira walked in silence and Ravi tried to talk, but she only nodded and did not say much. Taro kept looking at her, sensing something strange. When they reached the cliff, the sun was almost gone. The valley below was covered in long shadows. Ravi took a deep breath. He still loved this place. It reminded him of better days when he walked on his own feet, carried baskets, and played with Taro without needing a chair. For a moment, he forgot his pain and admired the view. Mira stood behind him with a blank expression. She looked at the deep valley and then at Ravi. Her eyes were tired. Her shoulders were tense. Something had been sitting heavy inside her for months, and she felt it pressing harder now. She stared at Ravi as if she was fighting a battle inside her own mind. Taro sensed the danger before Ravi did. The dog's ears shot up. His tail lowered. His body stiffened. A soft growl rose from his throat. But Ravi did not understand its meaning. Ravi looked up at his wife and asked if she was all right. Mira said nothing. She only placed both her hands on the wheelchair handles. Before Ravi could ask another question, she pushed the chair forward with a firm force. The wheels rolled quickly over the cold ground. Ravi felt the wind on his face as he moved faster and faster toward the edge. He shouted Mira's name, but her face did not change. It stayed empty and distant, as if she felt nothing at all. Taro barked with all his strength. The sound echoed across the valley. The dog ran toward the rolling wheelchair, but it was too fast. Ravi reached the edge, and the chair dropped downward. The world flipped around him. He saw the sky above and the valley below. He felt branches hit his arms. He felt the cold grip of fear. Then everything went dark for a moment as he crashed into a thick bush halfway down the slope. The bush slowed his fall and kept him from sliding any farther. Pain shot through his back and arms. He could barely breathe, but he was still alive. Above him, Taro stood at the edge barking so loudly that birds flew away from the trees. The dog ran back and forth, searching for a path down. He refused to give up. Mira stood frozen at the top. Her hands trembled. She stared at the cliff, unable to move. She did not expect such a loud reaction from Taro. She did not expect the fall to stop halfway. She did not expect the dog to act with such force. She tried to calm her breath. She looked around to make sure no one had seen her. Then she began walking away, trying to appear normal, but Taro had already jumped into action. He ran toward the lower path that led down the valley. The path was rough and covered with stones. His paws slipped, but he did not stop. His heart raced. His body pushed harder than ever before. He followed Ravi's scent through the bushes, through patches of grass, and through fallen leaves. Ravi lay in the bush, unable to move. His mind was spinning. His arms were scratched. He tried to call out, but his voice was too weak. He felt the cold wind against his face. He wondered if anyone would find him. He wondered why Mira had done what she did. Then he heard a familiar sound. It was soft at first, but grew louder and clearer. Taro had found him. The dog pushed through the branches and reached Ravi. He licked Ravi's hand and wind. Ravi felt a wave of relief. He tried to speak, asking for help. Taro understood. He turned and ran toward the village as fast as his legs could move. He barked non-stop. He jumped at people's legs and pulled at their clothes, trying to make them follow. The villagers were confused at first, but old Ramesh realized something was wrong. He followed Taro, and soon others joined. They rushed toward the bushes and found Ravi lying there, hurt but alive. The villagers carried him carefully back home. Taro stayed right beside him, almost touching his side as they walked. Myra saw them coming from far away. Her face lost all color. She did not expect Ravi to survive. She did not expect Taro to bring the truth so close to her door. Taro stepped in front of Ravi and stared straight at Myra, as if warning her that this story was not ending the way she planned. The villagers carried Ravi home with great care. They placed him on a clean bed and wrapped warm blankets around him. His arms were scratched, his back hurt, and his breathing was slow. But he was alive because Taro had refused to give up. The dog sat beside the bed and watched every movement around Ravi. His eyes never blinked. His body stayed firm like a guard. Mira stood near the doorway with shaking hands. She wanted to speak, but no words came out. Taro growled softly when she stepped closer. The villagers noticed the dog's strange behavior. They wondered why Taro, who had always been gentle, was acting so stern toward her. Ramesh asked Mira what happened on the cliff. She said the wheelchair slipped because the ground was uneven. Her voice trembled, but she tried to hide it with quick breathing. She said she tried to save Ravi, but the chair moved too fast. Some villagers believed her because they thought she must be in shock. Others stayed silent and waited for more details. The doctor arrived shortly after and examined Ravi. He cleaned the wounds and checked for any new damage. Ravi's spine had not become worse, but the fall had bruised his arms and shoulders. The doctor said he needed rest and careful watching. Taro listened to every word and rested his head near Ravi's hand as if promising to stay alert all night. When the villagers went home, Mira finally entered the room. She stepped slowly toward Ravi's bed. Taro stood up and moved between them. His ears were raised and his eyes sharp. Myra stopped where she was, unable to take another step. Ravi looked at her with silent confusion. There was no anger in his face yet, only fear, sadness, and disbelief. Mira turned away quickly, pretending she needed to bring water. But the truth was that she felt unable to meet Ravi's eyes. Her heart pounded with guilt and worry. She knew Taro had already revealed her truth through his behavior. She feared that soon the villagers would start asking harder questions. Later that night, Rafa woke up. His breath was uneven and he felt cold. Taro raised his head and licked his hand gently. Ravi whispered Taro's name and tried to make sense of everything. He remembered the sun going down, the cold wind on his face, the sudden push from behind, and the long drop. He remembered Myra's silence before the fall. He remembered Taro barking with fear. The memories were still blurry but sharp enough to make his heart shake. Ravi called Ramesh the next morning and asked him to sit with him privately. Taro remained in the room while they spoke. Ravi told Ramesh that he did not remember the wheelchair slipping. He said he remembered Myra standing behind him without saying a word. He said Taro started growling at her before anything happened. Ramesh listened carefully and took every word seriously. Ravi's voice was weak but steady. He told Ramesh that something about Mira's behavior was not right. Her calm face during the fall, her cold expression when he looked at her, and her strange silence afterward made him uneasy. He did not want to accuse her without proof, but he could not ignore his fear either. Ramesh placed a hand on Ravi's shoulder and said he would speak with the village headman. He promised that the truth would come out in the right way. Taro wagged his tail softly as if agreeing. That afternoon Ramesh gathered a few elders and told them everything Ravi remembered. He also explained how Taro behaved toward Mira. The elders respected Taro's instincts since the dog had saved Ravi's life. They decided to observe Myra quietly before making any decision. 2 days passed. Mira kept herself busy in the kitchen, avoiding long conversations with anyone. Every time she entered Ravi's room, Taro stood up and watched her with hard eyes. She tried to speak kindly, but her voice trembled each time. Ravi's suspicion grew even stronger. On the third day, something unexpected happened. Taro was sniffing around the courtyard when he found a small piece of metal under the water pot shelf. He nudged it with his nose and carried it inside the house. When Ramesh visited again, Taro placed the metal piece in front of him. Ramesh picked it up and stared at it. It was a part of a brake lever from Ravi's wheelchair. It looked broken. Taro stared at Myra as if telling everyone what this evidence meant. The villagers who were present began whispering among themselves. Mira's face turned pale. She said she found the piece near the cliff and brought it back without thinking. She claimed she did not know what it was, but her voice lacked confidence. Her hands shook without control. Some villagers began to doubt her more deeply now. The headman asked her to explain why she had not mentioned the broken part earlier. Myra said she forgot. Her answer was weak and unconvincing. Taro barked softly, as if disagreeing. The villagers gathered again that evening near the courtyard to discuss what they witnessed. They talked about Taro's strange behavior toward Myra, his sharp reactions, and the new metal piece he found. Slowly, their doubts grew thicker. They wondered if the fall was truly an accident or something more serious. Meanwhile, Ravi lay in bed thinking deeply. He did not want to believe that his wife could harm him. They had lived together for years. They shared many moments of happiness. He knew she had grown tired, but he never imagined she would lose hope so deeply that she would try to remove him from her life. He looked at Taro, who sat beside him like a silent protector. Ravi placed his hand on the dog's head and whispered his thanks. Taro closed his eyes, understanding the emotion behind the words. Later that night, the villagers heard Taro barking outside again. His bark was not angry this time. It sounded urgent. The villagers rushed out and followed him. Taro ran toward the cliff and stopped at the exact spot where the wheelchair tracks still remained. The marks on the ground were clear. The tracks went straight toward the edge without any sign of slipping or turning. The path looked like something had been pushed with force. The villagers studied the ground carefully. The headman knelt down and touched the soil. It was firm and not slippery. There were no loose stones in the main path. The marks told a story that was very different from Myra's words. The villagers returned home in silence, each lost in thought. They knew the truth would soon surface completely at home. Myra sat by the window with a troubled expression. She knew the villagers had seen the track marks. She knew the break piece was in their hands. She knew Taro had become the voice of truth. She walked to Ravi's room again, but Taro growled and stepped between them. Myra stopped. Ravi looked at her with calm but tired eyes. He asked her in a soft voice if the fall was truly an accident. Myra opened her mouth, but no words came out. She stood there frozen, while Taro guarded the space between them. The truth was no longer hidden. It was slowly rising to the surface, carried forward by a loyal dog who refused to stay silent. The night after the villagers saw the wheelchair tracks on the cliff, the entire village felt uneasy. People whispered quietly in their homes, wondering what truth would come out next. Everyone trusted Taro because the dog had saved Ravi without hesitation, and everyone trusted Ramesh because he had always spoken with fairness. But no one knew how Myra would react now that the doubt around her had grown stronger inside their small house. Ravi lay awake. He stared at the window where the moon shone through a thin curtain. Taro rested beside the bed with his head on his paws, keeping watch. Every few minutes, the dog lifted his head to check on Ravi. He was ready to bark or run if anything unusual happened. Ravi's heart felt heavy. He was not only hurt in body but also troubled in mind. He never thought his life would take such a sharp turn. He remembered the love he once shared with Myra. They had built their home together with hope. They had laughed, planted vegetables, raised Taro, and welcomed guests with warm smiles. Now those memories felt distant. He wished they were still the same, but he could not erase what happened on the cliff in the early morning. The village headman visited Ravi. He sat beside the bed while Taro watched closely. The headman spoke softly. He told Ravi that they had seen the track marks clearly, and the path showed no sign of slipping. He also mentioned the metal break piece. He asked Ravi if he remembered anything else about the moment before the fall. Ravi closed his eyes, searching his memory. He could not recall every detail, but he remembered Myra standing silently behind him. He remembered her hands on the wheelchair handles. He remembered the strange coldness in her eyes before the push. He told the headman everything he could remember. The headman listened without interrupting. When Ravi finished, the headman looked at him with sympathy. He said they would not act with anger but with truth. He said they wanted to understand why Myra did what she did. He promised Ravi that no one would harm her. They only wanted honesty and safety for everyone. After the headman left, Ravi felt a deep sadness. He did not want Myra to suffer, but he also could not ignore what happened. He turned his face toward Taro and placed his hand on the dog's fur. Taro leaned into his hand as if telling him he was not alone. Meanwhile, Myra sat in the kitchen holding a cup of tea she could not drink. Her eyes were red from tears she refused to show in front of others. She knew the village was beginning to suspect her. She knew the evidence was growing too strong. Fear wrapped around her heart like a tightrope. She tried to convince herself that she had done it out of desperation. She told herself she had felt trapped without help and without rest. But deep in her mind, she knew she had made a choice that crossed all limits of trust. She felt ashamed but also afraid of what would come next. Later that day, the elders gathered at the headman's house. Ramesh was there too because he had been the first to follow Taro to the bushes. They discussed every detail. They spoke about the break piece, the track marks, the behavior of the dog, and Ravi's memory. They agreed that they needed to speak with Myra directly. By afternoon, the headman and 3 elders walked toward Ravi's house. A small group of villagers watched from a distance, waiting silently. Myra saw them coming through the window. She felt her legs weaken. She wanted to run but knew it would only make things worse. The headman knocked on the door. Myra opened it with trembling hands. Taro stood behind her with a low growl, but Ravi called out to him gently, calming him. The elders entered and stood in the small living room. Myra stood in front of them with fear in her eyes. The headman spoke first. His voice was calm but firm. He told Myra that the village had seen signs that did not match her story. He said they needed to hear the truth from her. He said he wanted to understand what happened on the cliff. Myra's lips shook. She tried to speak, but no words came at first. The silence grew heavy. Ravi waited in his room, listening with a pounding heart. Taro stayed at the doorway, watching. Finally, Myra spoke. Her voice cracked. She said she had felt trapped for months. She said she had no help and felt she was carrying a burden too heavy for her heart. She said she had lost her ability to think clearly. She said she regretted everything. She did not deny her actions. She looked down at the floor, unable to look at the elders. The room grew silent after her confession. The elders exchanged sad glances. They did not shout or scold her. They only told her that she must stay away from Ravi for some time. They said she needed rest and guidance. They said she could not be left alone with him again until his heart and body healed completely. Mira cried silently and nodded. She understood that trust was broken, and it would take time to repair even a part of it. When the elders left, Myra walked toward Ravi's room slowly. She stood at the doorway. She wanted to speak to him, but she could not form the words. Ravi looked at her with tired eyes. There was no anger in his expression, only deep hurt. Taro stood between them once again, guarding Ravi with steady courage. Mira whispered an apology. Ravi listened without replying. He gave a small nod, not of acceptance but of acknowledgement. He wanted peace, not revenge. But he also needed safety and space. He asked Myra gently to stay with her relatives for a while. He said he needed time to understand his own feelings. Myra lowered her head and agreed. She packed a few belongings and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she looked back at Ravi for one last moment. Tears filled her eyes. Then she stepped out of the house and walked down the path with slow steps. After she left, Taro jumped onto the bed and placed his head on Ravi's chest as if telling him everything would be all right. Ravi stroked the dog's back and felt the warmth of loyalty that had saved his life. He whispered Taro's name with gratitude. The villagers soon learned that Myra had confessed. Some felt angry at her actions. Some felt pity because they understood how pressure can break a person. But everyone agreed on one thing. If not for Taro, Ravi would not be alive. In the evening, the villagers gathered outside Ravi's house. They brought warm food, blankets, and words of comfort. They helped repair his broken wheelchair and promised to support him whenever he needed help. Ravi felt touched by their kindness. Taro sat proudly beside him, watching everyone with steady eye. The villagers patted the dog's head, calling him a hero. Children hugged him. Farmers brought him treats from their pockets. But no matter how much attention he received, Taro stayed close to Ravi, guarding him with unwavering love. As night fell, Ravi looked at the sky. He felt sadness but also strength. He knew the coming days would bring change. The truth was out now, and the rest of the story would depend on the choices he made. Taro curled beside him, ready to face whatever came next. When Ravi woke up the next morning, he found himself lying in the small living room of Kareem's house. The blanket around him was warm. The room smelled of fresh tea. Kareem was already awake and watching over him with kind eyes. Shadow sat beside Ravi, his tail gently tapping the floor as if asking if he was feeling better. Ravi tried to lift himself. His arms shook, but this time he managed to push up a little. Kareem came closer and helped him sit comfortably. The man's hands were steady and gentle. Ravi felt a calm he had not felt in many days. Kareem placed a cup of warm tea in Ravi's hands. Ravi held it carefully and took a slow sip. He felt life returning to him. He looked at Kareem and then at Shadow. They were the only reason he was still alive. A thought filled him with gratitude. That morning, Kareem told Ravi that he had something important to discuss. He sat in front of him with a serious but caring expression. Shadow moved closer, pressing his head against Ravi's leg. It was as if the dog understood that something important was about to be said. Kareem began slowly, choosing his words with great care. He told Ravi that he had seen the broken wheelchair near the cliff. When he found it, he first feared the worst. Then he saw Shadow rushing toward him, desperate and restless. The dog guided him back to the cliff's edge. When Kareem looked down, he saw Ravi lying in the shallow water, trying to stay alive. Kareem explained that he had not believed it was an accident. The cliff path was wide and safe. The wheelchair marks did not show a mistake or a slip. They showed force. They showed someone else's hands pushing it. Ravi listened quietly. His breath trembled. He had tried not to think about that moment. But now, hearing the truth spoken out loud, it hurt differently. He remembered Amina's hands on the wheelchair handles. He remembered the cold tone in her voice earlier that day. He remembered the fear in his chest when the wheels moved faster than he could understand. Ravi lowered his eyes. Speaking still took effort, but he managed to whisper that he had felt something was wrong for a long time. He told Kareem how Amina had grown distant, how she rarely spoke to him with warmth anymore, how her words carried impatience, how she blamed him for his condition even when he tried his best. Kareem listened without interrupting. He let Ravi speak at his own pace. When Ravi finished, Shadow placed his head on Ravi's lap, offering silent comfort. Kareem then said something that surprised Ravi. He suggested that Ravi should not go back home yet. He said the safest place for him was here in the village. Ravi looked at him with confusion. How long could he stay here? Amina would likely look for him. Or maybe she would not, which was a painful thought. Kareem touched Ravi's shoulder and said that the village elders would help him. They were good people. If they knew a man was in danger, they would not stay silent. They would stand with him. Ravi felt emotional. He had been saved by a man he barely knew and supported by a dog who never left his side. Now a whole village was willing to help him. The world still had kindness. He had almost forgotten that. After some rest, Kareem helped Ravi practice moving again. They spent hours each day. They worked on simple exercises first, lifting his arms, moving his fingers, trying to shift his weight. Kareem encouraged him every step. Shadow sat nearby and barked softly when Ravi completed a task, as if celebrating each small victory. Weeks passed this way. Ravi grew stronger bit by bit. He still could not walk on his own, but he could now sit up without help. He could move one leg slightly. This progress felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. During this time, Amina did not appear. Kareem kept an eye on the village road, expecting someone from the town to ask about Ravi, but no one came. Ravi tried not to think about that too much. It hurt to accept that the person who once promised to stand with him had chosen a different path. But he also felt something else. He felt freedom from fear. One morning, Kareem came into the room carrying a wooden frame. Inside it was a small mirror. He placed it before Ravi and said he should see himself. Ravi hesitated. His reflection had felt like a reminder of everything he had lost. But he trusted Kareem. Slowly, he looked. The man in the mirror seemed different than before. His eyes still carried exhaustion, but there was new strength. His face showed determination. He no longer looked like someone waiting for the world to decide his fate. He looked like someone rebuilding his life, piece by piece. Ravi smiled faintly. Shadow wagged his tail, and Kareem smiled too. That same afternoon, Kareem told Ravi that he had spoken to the village elders. They wanted to meet Ravi the next day, not to question him but to welcome him. They wanted him to feel part of the village for as long as he needed help. Ravi felt moved. It was the first time in many months that he felt valued. The next morning, Kareem helped him into a wooden chair they had repaired. Shadow took his place beside them. Together they made their way slowly toward the central area of the village. The path was shaded by tall trees. Birds sang overhead. The air was fresh and calm. When they reached the gathering place, several elders were waiting. Their faces were warm. Their voices were gentle. They asked Ravi about his health and offered support. One elder suggested bringing a healer. Another offered to lend a special chair that would make moving easier on uneven ground. Ravi felt overwhelmed but grateful. He may have lost much in the past months, but he had also found something new. A man who saved him. A dog who never left him. A village that opened its doors. For the first time in a long while, Ravi felt hope rising in his heart. He did not know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. He was no longer alone, and he was no longer afraid. Shadow, standing proudly by his side, seemed to sense this. His tail wagged gently as if saying the journey was not over. Something important was still ahead. Ravi woke up early the next morning to the sound of birds outside Kareem's house. The light entering the room was soft and warm. It had been many weeks since he arrived in the village, and every day brought a new step forward. He felt a calm strength spreading through him. His body was still weak, but his spirit had grown stronger. Shadow slept near his blanket. But the moment Ravi shifted, the loyal dog opened his eyes and lifted his head. Shadow stretched slowly, then came closer and rested his head on Ravi's leg. Ravi smiled and placed a gentle hand on the dog's head. Kareem came in with breakfast. He greeted Ravi with a warm smile and asked how he was feeling. Ravi replied that he felt better than any day before. Kareem nodded with pride. He had seen Ravi fight every day to recover. He respected him deeply. After breakfast, Kareem suggested they try something new. Ravi felt curiosity rise inside him. Kareem walked out for a moment and returned with a pair of wooden supports he had crafted himself. They were strong and smooth. He said these would help Ravi practice standing with more balance. The idea filled Ravi with nervous excitement. It had been a long time since he stood on his own 2 feet. Kareem helped him get into position. Shadow watched with full attention, ready to bark encouragement like he always did. With great effort, Ravi pushed down on the supports. His arms trembled. His legs felt heavy. His breath came fast, but he did not stop. Kareem held him from the side, giving him the steady support he needed. After several tries, Ravi managed to lift himself into a standing position for a brief moment. It felt like the ground had changed under him. It felt new and powerful. He sat back down slowly. His heart raced, not from fear but from pride. Shadow barked happily and wagged his tail. Ravi laughed softly. It was the first full laugh he had allowed himself in a long time. That afternoon, Kareem told Ravi that some people from the village wanted to visit. They had heard about his progress and wanted to meet him again. Ravi felt shy but also grateful. When the villagers came, they brought small gifts. Someone offered fresh fruit. Another handed him a warm shawl. The village healer brought herbs to help ease pain in his legs. Ravi thanked them all. He felt the kindness in every gesture. These people had no reason to help him except simple humanity. Each smile they gave made his heart lighter. Later, after the visitors left, Ravi and Kareem sat outside the house to enjoy the evening air. The sky was turning orange. The trees rustled softly. Shadow sat between them, leaning against Ravi's leg. Ravi looked at the quiet village road and felt a mix of emotions. He remembered the home he came from. He remembered the pain of the past. But now he also saw the peace of the present. The village felt like a safe place where he could rebuild himself without fear. Karim noticed his thoughtful expression and asked what he was thinking. Ravi said he did not know what to do next. Should he go back? Should he stay here? Should he try to start a new life in the village? Karim listened carefully. He told Ravi that the decision was his and that no one would push him either way. The villagers cared for him, and if he wanted to stay, they would welcome him. But if he wished to return to his town for closure or answers, they would help him prepare for the journey. Ravi nodded slowly. He realized he needed clarity. Staying in the village was safe, but part of him felt he needed to face what happened, not with fear, but with strength. He needed to understand what his life meant now. He looked at Shadow. The dog watched him with steady eyes. Shadow had chosen him without hesitation. That loyalty gave Ravi courage. That night, Ravi thought a long time. He remembered the moment he was pushed from the cliff. He remembered the shock, the water hitting his back, the cold fear. But he also remembered Shadow jumping after him without a second thought. That memory felt stronger than the pain. By morning, he made his choice. He told Karim that he wanted to return to the town, but only for one reason. He wanted to speak the truth aloud to someone who needed to hear it. He wanted to close the door on his past with dignity. Karim understood. He helped prepare everything. He arranged a sturdy cart with soft cushions. He packed water and food. Shadow sat proudly beside the cart, as if ready to protect Ravi during the journey. Several villagers came to see them off. They wished Ravi good fortune. Some placed their hands on his shoulder and told him he was stronger than he realized. Ravi felt warmth in their words. The journey to the town took several hours. Shadow walked beside the cart the entire way. Karim pushed the cart steadily, never complaining about the distance. When they reached the edge of the town, Ravi asked Karim and Shadow to wait for him near a quiet tree. He wanted to face the moment alone. Ravi asked a passerby to take him to his old house. When they arrived, he looked at the familiar door. His heart beat faster, but he did not let fear control him. He knocked. When the door opened, he saw Amina. Her expression changed from surprise to discomfort. She looked away for a moment, unsure what to say. Ravi remained calm. In a steady voice. He told her he had come for one reason. He said he wanted nothing from her. No argument, no pain, no blame. He said he only wanted to speak the truth about himself. He told her that he was not weak. He told her that he had survived something no one expected him to survive. He told her he had rebuilt his strength from almost nothing. He told her that his life no longer rested on anyone's approval. Amina stood silent. Ravi realized that whatever she felt was no longer his burden. With peaceful clarity, he told her goodbye. He turned away with dignity. When he returned to Karim and Shadow, they saw the calm on his face. Shadow ran to him and placed his head on Ravi's lap. Karim smiled and asked if Ravi was ready to go back to the village. Ravi nodded. As they began their journey back, Ravi looked at the road ahead. It felt open and full of possibilities. He had lost much, but he had gained something stronger. He had a loyal friend in Shadow, a true companion in Karim, and a village that cared for him. Most importantly, he had himself again. The sun shone warmly over them as they moved forward, and Ravi felt sure of one thing. His future was no longer shaped by fear or betrayal. His future was his own choice, and he was ready to live it with courage and peace.